laser is a very useful tool. A laser is a light, a tool that emits light through the process of optical amplification based on the stimulated emission of electromagnetic radiation. That's the technical definition. In essence, a laser is focused light. And when it's focused, light has great power, great usefulness in industry, in medicine. I mean, you use them probably more in even everyday life than you realize. The scanner that you use at the grocery store, the supermarket, is a laser, actually. I mean, lasers are so powerful that they can cut metal, strong steel, but also so precise they can cut cloth. Often lasers are used in brain surgery because of their precision, and they're actually less painful than a scalpel. Therefore, the healing is more rapid. So my questions for you are this. Are you a jack of all trades and a master of none? What are the filters with which you make decisions? Your daily and your long-term, macro and micro decisions. Have you discovered the purpose for which you were born? Are you living a focused life? Mark Twain was quoted as saying, "The two most important days in your life are the day when you were born and the day you discover why." Oliver Wendell Holmes said, "Many people die with their music still inside of them." Why is this so? Too often it is because they are always getting ready to live, but before they know it, time runs out. Wow, when I saw that quote a couple of weeks ago, it struck me so hard. Are we so busy trying to get ready to do what we're born for that we never get around to doing? Are you going to die with your music in your heart? We're completing our series today on leading or reacting. And our title for this session is Living Focused. I'm so thankful for the input that we've received over the last several weeks from Guy McDonald today, our guest, from Sunday Taniegra, from Miguel Pablonia. I hope that these 5 seminars have been useful to you and that they'll prove useful to you in the coming days. I mean, this is an interesting season in which we're living. This pandemic will pass, but life is never going to be quite the same before. And so we offer these teachings to give you tools, to give you direction, and to make maximum opportunity of the situation we're in today. And they're all going to be available on our website. In fact, the previous 4 already. We're actually breaking them down into series. There will be a series for Miguel, a series for Sunday, a series for myself. Go to our website, check it out. I'm challenged by this whole idea that we really can't lead others if we're not leading ourselves. And so in our first session, we address this challenge. Run your race, run your pace, run with grace. In the next 2 sessions, 2 and 3, we gave evidences. I offered you evidences of a reactionary lifestyle. Not leading, but living in a reactionary lifestyle. Number 1, busy for the sake of being busy. Number 2, constantly putting out fires. Number 3, feeling drained. Your energy is constantly drained. Number 4, no time to get quiet. Quiet to think. Quiet to wait on God. Quiet for your own sake. Number 5, satisfied with second best. When you become satisfied on a regular basis with less than the best, it's pretty good evidence that you're living in a life of reaction and not leadership. Number 6, when you're looking back and you feel like you're just going to give up. Number 7, finally, when you're driven by fear and not by faith. So my challenge to you is no more hamster life. Remember the hamster's that guy who runs all night long, 6 miles in one night, but he's in that cage and gets nowhere. He's just running for the sake of running. Let's make sure we know where we're going and that we're living a life of leadership that blesses others. How do we know? You know you're living a life of leading when you're filled with hope for the future. When your life is based on a vision, a picture that God's given you for your life. Number 2, you know you're living a life of leading when you find fulfillment in being, not just in doing. Not just in what you do, but who you are. Number 4, when you can lean forward in the midst of adversity. When you're driven backwards, that's a sign of reaction. When you're pressing on, when you're falling forward even if necessary, falling on your face before God, that's an evidence that you're actually living a life of leading. So that's the first 3. Today we're going to address 4 more and focus particularly on this idea of living with the knowledge of God's purpose for your life. So number 4 is this. You know you're leading when you're focused on what you do best. So I asked the question, are you a jack of all trades and master of none? Because really, you're either one. I used to think that was a compliment. If someone said you're a jack of all trades, master of none, I've come to realize that actually that's not a compliment at all. Some years ago, I had the privilege of building my own home. Actually, I didn't really build it. I was kind of the helper. And a number of the men in the church gave their time to help me build my own home. One of them was an electrician. And one man in particular, a good friend, did mostly electrical work for my entire house on his own time, evenings and weekends, without charging me anything for it. And I felt so bad for the number of hours he was putting in that I decided I'd go up a couple of times during the daytime when he wasn't there and just help him out. I had a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of background in electrical work. I worked with my dad in the past, and he knew electric well. Anyway, I'd go up there and I'd run wires and this and that. And I noticed after about a week or so that my friend stopped coming. He stopped working, and I didn't think too much of it. But when I saw him the next day at church, he kind of was standoffish. And I went to him after the service was over and said, "Is there a problem here? I feel like I've done something." And he, no, you're right. I said, no, be honest with me. He looked at me straight in the eye. He says, "You've been up there working on that electrical work in your house, haven't you?" I said, "Well, yeah, I wanted to help you out." He said, I don't need your help. In fact, I don't want you working on that work." And I was really taken back. I said, "Well, what's the problem?" He said, "Well, your work is sloppy." I said, "Oh, help me out here. I mean, how hard is it?" He had the boxes set already all over the house. I was just running the wire between the boxes. He said, "No, you're just running it. You need to bring that wire out at a right angle, down the stud, across straight, back up again. No twists, no turns. It needs to look perfect when you're done." I said, "Now, wait a minute. We're going to cover all that up. No one's ever going to see that. No one's ever going to know the difference." He looked at me in the eye once and he said, "I will know the difference." Man, that even this very day as I'm telling this story speaks so deeply to me. I made a promise. I said, okay, to my friend, "I won't go back up ever again. It's all yours." So a couple of weeks went by and he finished up the job. Basically, the walls were finished, the drywall, and he put on the outlets and switches in. And he said, "Well, you could help me with one thing. I think you're capable," he kind of smiling a little bit. "I think you're capable of going and putting on the plates, the switch plates, the socket plates, all that. The little plastic thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can do that." I went up, I did it. I saw him a week or so later. He said, shaking, he said, "You couldn't even do that right. You couldn't even put the plates on right." And again, I said, "Really?" I mean, he was smiling, so I know I wasn't in too much trouble. He said, "No, the slots on the screws, there's a slot on the screw. They're all facing different directions." I said, "Yeah." He said, "They should all be facing the same direction. A real electrician. You go into a house where a real electrician has been working, they'll all be in the same direction." I said, "I'll fix it tomorrow." I went back before the inspector got there, before he could come back. I had them all horizontal, all level, all around the house. I told the same story a couple of years ago in a meeting, and another electrician approached me afterwards, and he said, you really didn't get that right either, because they really shouldn't be horizontal, because then they'll catch dust. They all should be vertical, up and down." Now, he was really precise in what he did. My point is this. You need to be focused on what you do best. I'm not an electrician. An electrician knows the little nuances, the little details. Paul says in 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6, "For this reason I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is given to you through the laying hands of my hands. God has given us the Spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control." It's really this simple. When you're focused on the gift that God has given you, not trying to do someone else's gift, do what you're called to do, you're going to find joy and peace. That's number 4. Number 5, you know you're leading when others are following. Now, that may sound too simple, but it's just true. If no one's following you, then you're not leading. And that leadership begins with leading yourself, as we said several times already. Acts chapter 20, verse 28. Paul's challenging the leaders of the church, and he says this, "Be careful, give careful attention to yourselves and to the flock of God." So pay attention to you first before you try to lead others. I think there's a kind of an inborn or cultural challenge, I guess it is, in church circles, that we should be very careful about leading others and exerting leadership. Yet I believe the world is hungry for leadership, hungry for true leaders. And Paul wasn't ashamed at all. Paul said, "Be imitators, be followers, do what I do, even as I follow Christ." And I believe that each one of us should take on that challenge, knowing that when we do what we're created for, the specific things, as you were, others will want to follow us. You'll know you're leading when people are following. Number 6, you know you're leading when you keep your eye on the prize. And the question is, what is your prize? Philippians chapter 3, verse 13 says, Philippians 3:13, brothers, I do not consider that I have made it my own, but one thing I do, forgetting what lies behind and straining forward to what lies ahead, I press toward the goal for the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. Run your race. Run your pace. What are you good for? What is your prize? That first prize, more than anything else, is to know Jesus. To know his presence, his working, his power in your life. And I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. But how do you live that out? Are you focused on the prize that your life is made for? One of my favorite movies is a movie called Mr. Holland's Opus. Mr. Holland's Opus. And I'd encourage you to find it and watch it. Mr. Holland was he was a musician. He had the dream of writing a symphony, which would bless many people. The problem is he couldn't make a living doing that, so he took a job as a school teacher. And he lives basically his whole life throughout the movie in frustration, not realizing how many lives he was impacting. And at the end of the movie, some of his students organize a reunion, and they all kind of gather in the auditorium, and they bring him in, surprised. They tell their stories of how his life impacted them. And he actually does finish his symphony. His music is brought out of it, and it's amazing. My question is this. Are you focusing on such small, minute details that you get frustrated, not really realizing that when you're being who you are, you're really impacting many lives in the process? I challenge you, keep your eye on the prize. And that number one prize is to know Jesus and let him live his life through you. And that brings me to number 7. You know you're living a life of leading when you're aware of the presence and the pleasure of God in your life. I want to emphasize that there's a joy, there's a feeling of pleasure when you know the presence of God in your life. One of my favorite scriptures is in Revelation chapter 3, verse 20. It's really very simple. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in and I will eat with him and he with me. There it is. There's this picture of the Father in heaven of our Lord Jesus wanting to come and sit down and have supper with us. That's why he could say to his disciples that, and they record this in the end of the book of Mark chapter 16, that as they went out, they didn't work for God. They Jesus working with them, confirming the word with signs following. You'll know God's pleasure when you're doing what you were created for and allow him to work with you in accomplishing those things. I feel like we're only scratching the surface. Our time has been limited, and I hope that I'll have the opportunity of sharing some of these things in more detail in the future. Just a couple of announcements as we're closing. This has been a great experience. I hope it's been good for you. And I want to encourage you to reach out to others. That all these recordings will be on the website, www.ldronline.org, when this is all finished. In fact, we're going to break each one of our series, the series by Sunday, the series by Miguel, my series, into and put them in the order in which they were given as separate series. And I hope they'll be useful to you. When you're at the website, look at our resources page. And there are several tools available for you there, including our course on principles of personal leadership. It's available for free. There are videos. There's a manual you can download. I hope that you'll take advantage of that. And you won't just be inspired by what I've been sharing in these sessions, but you'll do something with them. I want to close with the words we've used from the Apostle Paul from 1 Corinthians chapter 9 several times throughout this series. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24. Do you not know that in a race all runners run, but only one receives the prize? So run that you may obtain it. Run your race. Run your pace. Run with grace. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. You need to know what's hindering you, what's distracting you. Don't let those things that we've talked about, 7 things that give evidence of a reactionary lifestyle. Identify which ones are your problem, your challenges, and let's move past them. And then finally, I do not run aimlessly. I do not box as one beating in the air. I hope that you'll look at these last 7 characteristics that we looked at, that you'll find in them tools that will equip you to be the person that God has called you to be. My prayer for you is that you live a focused life, your purpose, the purpose for which God put you on this planet. God bless you.